Hi, this is Darren Drew from D. Drew Guitars. Today I'm going to show you something different than my normal realm. But I've been working with wood for my whole life. My dad taught me how to, make water skis when I was 5. He did everything remote control cars, boats, planes, blah, 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 on and on, restored kit cars. But he was a woodworker guy basically. And so he taught me a lot of tricks that I'm going to show to you today. And I'm old now. I got 2 ruptured discs, arthritis, and carpal tunnel in both my hands, and both my knees are bad. So doing a project like this is very painful and time consuming. But it just goes to show you that anybody can do it if I can. So these I'm using tongue and groove cedar planks that are 6 inches wide and up to 12 feet long. And I'm doing 2 walls. For one, this wall there, up over the top of that, well, straight on that edge of the door molding, and then over the top of this door molding, and then to the ceiling. So, but what I had to take account for is the door molding my wife wants me to leave is at an angle here. So I need to angle this end of the boards to match it. I've sanded the walls. You can see all the white spots. That's where I've sanded to get all the high spots off. And then I've marked it with a pencil mark for the where the studs are using a stud finder. And I will mark the top and bottom also and draw a straight line. That's where I'm going to put my nails into the wall, and the boards to nail them securely to the wall is in the studs only. And you can see, like, I have a power outlet there. I will use my jigsaw to cut out that board. So it's just right around that outlet. You can also see down here that there's a Wi-Fi cable that goes across, and I want to hide that. So I tucked it down, I carved it out, I tucked it down into the wall. And on the bottom of my board here, which will be the bottom board, I will cut this bottom side off so that in case it's sticking out a little bit, it will be okay because I'm not using the whole board's width. So it will hide that cable really nicely. Also, you can see how I have these boards, and these I've only stained with Minwax, neutral sealer one time, but I have like the less attractive boards to the nicer looking boards. And the nicer looking boards will go up top, of course. So let me go into the garage. I will show you some more steps that I had to go through to start and do this project. So I got my lumber, $1,000 worth of this knotty cedar tongue and groove wood. And you can see it here. These I have 2 coats on, but I'll get into that. But I made a place to store my wood safely, you could say. And the top ones here are for the cutoffs that I have so that I can store them out of my way. Okay, and what I first did was go through all of the boards. They were wrapped in 6 inches in a bundle. And so out of all the boards, and I got 8 extra because there's boards that you're not going to be really able to use. So there's 8 extra here. So I went through them all and I marked them like this, blue tape so I could see it easily, and then the measurements of the wood that I could use, and I wrote on it in a place that was not going to be used, so that because these pencil marks can ingrain into the wood. It's soft cedar, so it will indent in the wood and make more for you to sand out. So I went through and I got all the other boards for the other wall. 16 boards is what I'll need. And so I have them all back there already designated for that wall. And when you're working with cedar, you should wear a mouth and nose covering because it's very toxic to the body. Also, this cedar has splinters big time on the edges, and it will get into your fingers really bad, or big slivers will come out of it also. And I use 320 to sand the surface of it. And I sanded the back also with the 80 grit with just my palm sander. So I do that before I even go to cut it. Well, no, I cut it first and then I go to sand it. So I'm only sanding the spots or the boards that I need to sand. Um, and so when I start cutting the woods, though, I want to make sure that my chop saw is cutting perfectly straight with my fence so that I will get a perfect 90-degree angle on my cut so it fits the edge of the wall that I want correctly. I also made a little jig here on my little ladder that's old um, to hold the end of the board so that it stays flat on my tape on my chop saw. So, and I clean the blade. You always want a nice sharp blade, to do this with. And so I'll sand the boards with the 320 on the face side, 80 on the back side, palm sander, and then I blew it off with my air compressor, and then I will use a tack rag like this, and you can see all of the stuff even on here that was still on the board before I put my clear neutral sealer on it. Even after I blew off all the dust with my air hose, this stuff is still in the wood. And you want a nice, good looking, clean finish. And so this is the finish that I'm using. It's a Varathane wood stain neutral color because I just want to bring out the grain in the wood. It makes it a little bit darker, but it makes the grain pop, which that's what you want. And so I just use a rag, like what's up on here, folded nicely. And when I'm applying it, you just want to apply it. I do it first in the tongue and groove part here, and then I'll do the inside part like this, back and forth, and work my way down one board at a time. Especially when you're using a dark stain, you want to do that because otherwise you could leave overlap marks where you stained it here, and it's going to leave a darker overlap mark, which you don't want to do. With this neutral sealer, it's much easier to do that. And then, I just rub it in with my cloth, and then for the first coat. And the second coat, well, if you're using a darker stain, you may want to do that, wipe it off the first time after you apply it to a bunch of boards. With the neutral sealer, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get overlap marks. And but you don't want it just sitting on top. And I don't know if you can see the shiny spots compared to the dull spots. Well, that's what it causes. But I'm going to put a lacquer brush-on finish over the top of this after I do the neutral sealer twice. And the second coat is just to make sure I didn't miss any spots, like in through here, or whatever. It makes it so that the wood is absorbing the first coat a lot. The second coat is twice as easy and twice as fast. You don't have to soak it near as much. These guys that want to do a barn finish, 100-year-old wood, to me, that's just like, why would you even think of doing something like that inside your home? Because if I'm going to do a project like this, I want it to look badass. I don't want it to look like an old fucking barn. You know what I'm saying? So, no, sorry I put it that way, but still, that's just the reality of it. So, this will look even better. Haven't decided to go with the satin or a gloss yet. The glossier it is, the more flaws in the wood you'll see. But these are all, they cut to length. And here's the bevel that I had to do for that door molding. You can see it there. There, you can see it much better there on a scrap piece of wood. So I could get the right angle to make that seam line against the door molding as little as possible. I also made a little cutoff piece that will go on the tongue part, because you always want to do tongue part up, to where I can hit the board and make it go all the way down. So my seam is less in between these, the tongue and groove part, so that this line, it'll still show, but I want the least amount of that as possible. And you also want to first do your first board, make sure that it's level going up the wall to where all of your boards will continue to stay level. Otherwise, you don't want a crooked wall with your boards. So make sure that first bottom board is level before you nail it down. And when you do nail it down, I always do it in the corner here on the stud where it's already marked, so that you won't see the nail head with a nail gun. It's a very little nail, but still, you don't want to see that nail head. To make it nice, clean finish. And so, this is what I sand them all after I cut them to length, and it'll come out similar to this, but going up a wall. I will continue on with this video. I like to try to make them nice and short. So anyway, this is Darren Drew. Please like, subscribe, and I'll teach you some more tips and tricks later. Oh, here's one other thing. When you do the very end of your board, you also want to stain that for a few reasons, to seal it so that it doesn't weather near as bad, but so it will also blend in the right color, stuff like that. So there you go with some tricks before you even go to install these boards up on a wall. Thank you. This is Darren Drew. Bye.